Hello everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome to a more topical video on the channel, and today I want to talk about the UK election, which is coming up in, oh goodness me, it's not long at all now, is it? 30 days, I think, from today, from the day that this has been published, or something like that. Anyways, very, very soon. And they had the leaders' debate on last week, which was it was good. I mean, it was fairly decent viewing, to be honest. I did enjoy it. It was 2 hours of intrigue. Unfortunately, I think that we didn't actually learn really anything new that we didn't know before. One of the things that I did want to mention, though, in regards to that, just before we start, obviously there were 7 leaders there, and I think they all had the right to be there. I think probably the Greens have got the least, say to be there, but I understand, that they should be, they're represented in Parliament. But a point that was made, and that is regarding Northern Ireland, is that the DUP weren't actually asked to take part, which I think is a bit unfair. The fact that we give so much to Scotland and their publicity that we are sort of like, I think we neglected Northern Ireland somewhat in that debate. And so I just wanted to make that point, and I think that we should have, or they should have been invited. Now, a lot of some of the stuff that I'm going to say in this video might seem, I'm worried. I suppose it worries me that it might be seen as anti-Scottish, and I'll be honest, I don't actually. I've got a problem with Scotland or Scottish people. I have some family that are Scottish, and pretty much every Scottish person I have met thus far in my life has been very pleasant. And they're not all like that, but nor are the English, nor the Welsh, or the Northern Irish. So it's just one of those things. I do not like the SNP, though. As much as I appreciate that they are looking out for Scotland's best interest, and I think that is good for Scotland, I worry about the implications of the SNP after the next election. Because it's obvious that there's, neither the Conservatives nor Labour are going to get enough seats in order to actually be able to form a majority and be able to have the term by themselves. So it is going to be another coalition, or so it would seem, anyway. But I am sort of digressing again. But should, Labour get the highest amount of seats, which is plausible, I don't think they will, but it's plausible, they would then have to go in with some other parties in order to be able to form a government. Now, in my opinion, most likely that would have to be the SNP, and then one of the other parties, be it the DUP or Plaid Cymru, in order to actually have enough seats to pass decisions through. But then, of course, you've then got the other two parties that then have Labour over a barrel, basically, and are able to put some more sway into their own agenda. Now, anyway, the leaders' debates, I follow politics more than the average person. I'm not hardcore into it. I probably was more this time at the last election. I felt very passionately about not wanting Labour to rule the country. That's all I'd known, and I felt that a change was needed. They were too complacent. Leader wasn't strong enough, and some more radical action was needed to take care of the economy. That, I think most of those things still apply when I'm thinking about it this time around. And in the first Lord Leaders debates, I suppose, where they were questioned by Jeremy Paxman, I think Ed Miliband actually did very well in that interview. He came across, in my opinion, very human. Obviously, I know they are all human, but I definitely felt as though I could actually connect with Ed Miliband a lot more, and seeing as I really put myself away from the Labour camp, really. I did feel as though he was showing more competency. Although I should hope after, that many years of being on the sideline that he would. The point is, or the point I'm making in this video, or one of the points, is we then got to the leaders' debate where all 7 of them were there. And he'd gone back to the same guy that I always assumed he would. He always assumed he was, and it was a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can't see myself voting Labour. I would never count it out because, I like to think that I'm flexible enough to be able to change my mind on the issues that do matter, or that I think, or that I feel do matter. And another point leading on to that, especially with the Greens and not so much a little bit of the Liberal Democrats, and in my constituency at least, I'm going to go into that as well. But I think that it's going to be quite a controversial point, but I do think it is quite hipster to be overly liberal in your, approach to politics, which is a bit... I mean, don't get me wrong. Being liberal is... or some liberal elements are very good. And we should have them, naturally, obviously. A more tolerant, fairer society is always better. It just depends on how far you're going to go and where you draw the balance on that. Listening to the Green Party, I've never been a huge fan of them. And from the from the actual leaders' debate, I am now less inclined to vote for the Greens. They're a lot more radical the other way to my thinking. As possible, I understand the environment is a big issue, but quite frankly, unless you can get America, China, India, Brazil to change the way they're conducting their energy policies and their burning of fossil fuels, what we do in this relatively, or well, actually tiny country is going to be of no bearing to that. So you can look at, the Greens are fighting the wrong cause in this country, in my opinion. That is obviously their big point, which is, the environment. They also want to up the foreign aid budget, which I want to get onto that as well. I do see the point in having a foreign aid budget. A lot of people will say, well, there's £10 billion or whatever the exact figures of the budget are, and we've got people on the streets or families that can't feed themselves. And that is true, and it is well and good. If you could literally just take that money and it could directly go to the people that do need it, then yes, it would be brilliant, and we'd solve a lot of problems. The issue with that is you've got to have the right organisation that is able to carry that out, that the people who are getting that money do actually need it, and that they are trying to actually help themselves get out of that position as well. Helping someone that is stuck in a rut, obviously this, and doesn't want to get out of it, has no desire to get out of it, is a bit of a different matter. Obviously they still deserve help, don't get me wrong, but if you support the people that are trying their hardest to get out of it, then that's of more benefit in the long run, because the people who don't want to get out of it, they're going to be relying on it forever. Some people have no choice, and that is obviously fair enough if they are, disabled or whether that be mentally or physically, and are therefore unable to actually do it, then they do need care, and that should be provided for. Like I say, the problem with that is making sure the money is channeled in the right way and done through the right way, and that whatever organisation is set up to be able to do it isn't, sucking the money out of it. Much, if you think about it in terms of like charities with their administrational costs, and the fact you're donating your £2, obviously not all of your £2 is going towards the children in Africa or sponsoring the elephants, which is what I do, or anything like that. But, it just depends on your preference towards that sort of thing, I guess, as to whether you do actually are willing to take the loss of money in order to, help out the end cause, I suppose. Anyway, moved on a bit too much for that. I mean, for me, the election, all the parties basically have a very similar agenda, a very similar solution. It's either spend more money or cut more or tax more, and that's it. There's no... I don't think there is much of a... They're all sort of shooting within the same sort of scope. You know, adding an extra 100 million to one service and taking out of another is not... When you consider how much money they gobble up anyway, it's not a huge amount of difference. So my main topic is, or my main thought, or want, or desire from the election is to get a referendum on Europe, have it out in the open, gives a chance to decide on it. It's an institution that we pay a lot of money towards, we do get some benefits from. It affects a lot of our laws, whether directly or indirectly, and I just think the British people should have a vote into which they can make an informed decision on whether that is the right way to go about it. I think until we get that decision nailed down, we're sort of stuck in a bit of a downward spiral, really. I mean, if we decide to stay in Europe, then we have to accept that Europe are going to take a lot of control over the country and the laws, and that we are basically going to have to go into their fiscal union to get the most out of Europe. Whereas if we decide not to, then all of a sudden we have a lot more control over our legislation, how it's interpreted, how it's applied. We don't have to bow to the European Court anymore, because obviously that sets the precedence for our courts to follow. So in that sense, Europe is making more of our laws case-made law, and that way we can differentiate ourselves and have a lot more choice on how we run the country. Obviously, you might say it's less safeguarded, which is true. You haven't got Europe there to bail you out should you do anything, should you absolutely mess up like Greece or Italy have done. So, pros and cons there. It's not really worth getting into until we do have a referendum on it, which I think we will definitely one day, no matter what, because Europe are going to want to push through this closer and closer union anyway. So that for me is the main issue of the election. I think that sort of stuff hinges on a lot of the alternative potential solutions that we have to the economic problem. And just a little bit about my constituency. In terms of me voting, it honestly doesn't matter who I vote for. The MP for my constituency is Tredinnick, and he's been involved in some scandals. He's also the third or fourth longest serving MP in the House of Commons. I've always said he's got a job for life, and any other vote other than Conservative isn't going to get listened to in this constituency. There is a fair amount of support for the Liberal Democrats as well, but I believe he had a 10,000 majority in the last election. I think that will drop off slightly. It might go down to 7 or 8, but he's got a safe seat. Doesn't even need to campaign if he doesn't want to, quite frankly. That is the state of the situation here. I did vote for the Conservatives in 2005. Was it 2005? Sorry, 2010. I didn't vote for anyone in 2005. I wasn't old enough. I won't be voting for the Conservatives this time round. I have made my mind up on who I will vote for. Like I say, it's not going to make any difference. It just had another one to the party that I'll be choosing. But I'm not so pleased about the fact it's going to be hung again. I'd perhaps even rather Labour win a majority, because then they can actually go ahead with their plans without, being over a barrel to whatever other party they have to go into coalition with in order to secure government. But yeah, I mean, there's much food for thought in it. If you're still undecided in the UK and you can't make up your mind on who to vote for, it's definitely worth having a look into, picking some of the issues that do mean something to you. I mean, the couple of things apart from Europe that I'm very passionate about, I'd like to see the lowest rate of tax, so the point in which you start paying income tax, to be obviously the minimum wage goes up pretty much every year now, or it has done for the past 5 years. I'd like to see whatever that is, so it's probably $13,500 a year. I would like to see that be the limit, which effectively means that anyone who is, working a full-time job but for minimum pay shouldn't be paying any tax on that. If those sort of people are being taxed £250, £300 a year, for doing that sort of job, that's a lot of money to someone who doesn't have a lot, works, full-time hours every week, and is paid the lowest amount that they can actually be paid. So I think it's only fair to take those sort of people out of tax. I mean, me personally, I would, if it came to it, I'd rather it, the higher band. I don't even know how much I pay, roughly. I think it works out about 12% overall. But, I would gladly, have my tax up slightly, maybe 14%, an extra 2%, if they were to take those people out of tax. Because it's a balance, really. It's a lot of money to some people that are on that sort of pay. And, if things go wrong, I could easily be doing something like that. So, and I have done, of course. So, yeah, that's just the way I feel about that. And I'd also like to see the minimum wage go up as well. I'd like to think by 2020 the minimum wage would be, well, at least £8. Hopefully £8.20 or something along those lines. Just because then it does give people a real chance to earn enough money to be able to live on. There is such a thing as a living wage. I do subscribe to that. I'm not so sure the figures are totally correct on that. Obviously, as inflation goes up, the living wage would go up retrospectively. But yeah, I mean, you have really got to be earning £8 and over to be able to afford to live. I do think anything under that and you are struggling, especially when you've got dependents. I'm going on now, but I do speak from some personal experience in the matter on that one. The other thing is 0-hour contracts as well, which I think Labour, they're running with because it's the flavour of the month, and I think they're going about it incorrectly. 0-hour contracts do have a lot of substance to them and are worthwhile having, but obviously when you've got companies such as Sports Direct employing people to do 40 hours a week and then having them on a 0-hour contract, obviously that is not right, and stuff like that does need to be tackled, in my personal opinion anyway. But there you go. Anyway, guys, I've gone on for far too long now, and actually my voice is starting to go, which I can feel, and I don't have a drink. Just checking to see if I do and I don't. Oh well, never mind. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you found it informative. I suppose it is more my opinion than anything, but feel free to disagree, feel free to complain at me or be, I suppose, fanboyish about a particular party. But no, I think it will be an interesting election this year. A bit worrying, like I said, the reasons I've given, but it will be interesting to see what we come back with as the public, who we vote for, and what the percentage share of it is. I personally see the Conservative and Labour being pretty close, and I do honestly think that the Conservatives will pip Labour in terms of seats. And that will be in part due to the SNP and the decline of the Liberal Democrats. I do think UKIP will affect the I think if UKIP weren't around, the Conservatives still wouldn't win a majority, but they'd be pretty close. UKIP will take a lot of votes from the Conservatives and some from Labour as well, I personally think. But they won't get many seats. I think the third highest seats will go to Lib Dems, closely followed by UKIP. And then obviously we'll get a few of the others as well. I think, I've got a chance if they really target. The Greens might get 2. If they do target and they can hold on to Brighton, then that gives them a bit of leverage, I suppose, as well, potentially. Should Labour decide to try and form something. But yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.